on this call, this Zoom meeting. This is a very important topic, and as many of us have experienced at the local, national, and state level, violence against people of color in particular. One group that is not often highlighted are Black women. And I think just most recently, Breonna Taylor, who was killed in her own apartment as she was sleeping, really. As I listened to numerous reports in the media, there was a lot of discussion about George Floyd, which was justified to call out his name, and Ahmaud Arbery. But many a report, I heard no mention of Breonna Taylor. And so for me and for many other women, it brought up our concern that when Black women and women of color are killed, they don't get the same attention. They don't get their stories highlighted. And we can think about Sandra Bland. There's a whole list. And so some years ago, the African American Policy Forum, which is led by Kimberly Crenshaw, started this initiative. It's called #SayHerName. And the whole idea was to shed light on the fact that it wasn't just Black men who were being killed to police violence and also other forms of violence, but that we needed to uplift their names. And so what you've seen recently, Oprah Winfrey has taken this on to the point where in the history of her magazine, Oprah has always been on the cover. And for the first time in the history of her magazine, this month's issue has Breonna Taylor's picture on it. We also know that Oprah has invested money in billboards. I think it's 26 billboards that will be posted around the city in which she was killed. And so this is what the Say Her Name movement is all about. But the other thing that I'm concerned about is as we on a local level talk about what's happening nationally, we need to reflect on what has happened locally here in Portland. And so for me, the name of Kendra James was a really important flashpoint in our city. I remember when Kendra was killed. I remember when our community marched, we rallied, we raised her name and continue to raise her name. As I was thinking about this meeting earlier today, I remember the 10th anniversary of Kendra's death. And we had a rally over on Skidmore, which is where she was killed, right on the overpass of the freeway. And I just remember I felt like I needed to do something to honor her. And I remember on my way to the rally, I made a stop and I bought a dozen of red roses because I was determined. I remember saying to myself, I wanted to have some red roses. And so that's what part of this Say Her Name is. We must never forget those who have been taken from us due to police violence. And I might add to other forms of violence in our community, because as Marcia was mentioning, we had a young lady who was killed a couple of weeks ago. She was shot to death. She was 18 years old. And we must make sure that we don't forget those names. We had another young lady who was 14, I think she was Yoshani Vaughn. And I remember that very clearly because she went missing. And her mother and some community people, went to the police and said, well, this girl is missing. And their response was, well, she may be a runaway. And it was under police pressure that finally there was an investigation. And unfortunately, they found her body. I think it was months later. But once again, the purpose of this evening is to hear from Shirley Isidore, who is the mother of Kendra James, And I've talked with Shirley several times. And one of the things that's always gotten to my heart is when you look at these situations, you have to think about the aftermath and how the community, we were traumatized by Kendra's killing, make no mistake about it. We were traumatized. I just remember this sickening feeling in my stomach when I read the interviews with the police officers. And one of the things that stood out with me was when the officer who shot and killed her, he knew her, because when he first approached the car and stuck his head in there, he looked in the back seat and said, "Hey, Kendra, how you doing?" And so for me, it's like, once again, how do you go from recognizing, knowing somebody, and then blowing their head off? We saw that happen with Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta. How do you go from talking with a man about his excitement of looking forward to his 8-year-old daughter's birthday party the next day, and within minutes, this man is dead? So what we want to do tonight, we want to hear from Shirley. And when I talked with her earlier today, what I said to her was, Shirley, you share as much as you feel like. And if someone raises a question and you don't feel comfortable answering it, you don't have to. Because that's part of what we need to do as community, is we need to be compassionate and supportive. And even though it's 17 years later, Shirley and her family are still grieving the loss of Kendra. She had 2 young children. And so I'm going to, just one more thing I want to say. When you think about the Say Her Name movement, we also need to think about this whole notion of what we call intersectionality, which means that when a woman is approached by the police and she happens to be a person of color, there are 2 things that get kicked into gear: her gender and her race. So you have 2 things that work. And if people have preconceived notions about a Black woman or a woman who is Black, that can inform their responses and their interactions. So I'm going to, I think, Shirley, this is Joyce. Are you on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, all right. Let's everybody just give her a clap. Let's give her a clap. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm gonna.
You can't see us, but we are clapping.
We're clapping for you, Shirley. And I want to thank you so much for agreeing to be on this call. It's a challenge to try to deal with the loss that you've had. And I just want you to know that I know there are many of us in the community that have not forgotten the trauma that your family experienced. And so I want to turn it over to you, and you can start wherever you want to.
Okay. My name is Shirley Isidore, and I'm Kendra James's mom. In 2003, I had got a call from Sister Kathy, which is a very important person in my life, and my children were able to meet her. And that day, she called and she said that Kendra was ready to change her life. So I believe that morning at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when she was killed by the police officer. One of the things I don't understand, even though a person can be in a place where the choices that you make, you know, it takes you somewhere that you shouldn't be in the first place. Okay, I don't understand why this police officer had 45 encounters with her, but killed her on her 46th encounter. I have 2 grandsons. Melvin is 20, and Marquay is 18 and they haven't been able to understand not being able to grow up with their mom. You know, it's been 17 years, and I'm still not okay. But I have to be for them. You know, as they say, life is too short. And it's one thing I do believe, but God got my back, and I'm not mad. It's just a tragedy to take someone's life that's smaller than you. I mean, there shouldn't have been no fear whatsoever in him. It's just one of the things I don't understand. And she shouldn't have been sitting in the back seat. She should have been sitting on the curb with everybody else. And so there was a lot of things that were wrong with the when we went to court for 8 days. There were, okay, I'm going to say this, and I am not a prejudiced person, but every white person that was on that jury was prejudiced. Okay, they wouldn't allow no African American to be on that jury. It takes you 8 days to listen to a bunch of lies and 45 minutes to say he was not guilty. Him and his friend or his partner. You know, so I know I'm not going to never get what I need from Mr. McAllister and his partner. You know, I just had to let go and let God. But it still hurts. You know, and I would, well, from my understanding that Mr. McAllister ended up giving up his badge when he got that blood money. He decided to go to church. And sometimes some of the evilest persons are in church. You know, so I wish him all the luck in the world. I'm very angry because I get no peace and I get no justice. And I'm never going to get that justice or that peace.
Charlotte,
yeah.
this is Joyce. When we talked, one of the things I wanted you to share was after your daughter was killed, what happened in terms of the police interactions with you and your family? Were you interviewed? Did someone talk to you? Did anybody give you an apology for what had happened to your child? What
Okay, I didn't get no apology, but I remember that day when I was coming from work and I seen these two people standing across the street, and you know, people look out of place. And when I went to them and I asked them, I said, "What did my daughter do?" And she said, "How do you know we were here for her?" And I said, "Well, what did she do?" And they told me that the police officer had killed her. But as far as any other interaction with anybody else, no, there wasn't any.
Okay. So the other thing that I remember, there's a documentary that was done by some filmmakers here in Portland. And I remember when I first saw the first premiere of it at the Portland Art Museum. And one of the striking moments in there was an interview they did with you. And you were talking about, and we talked about this the other day, you were talking about this blue dress that you had bought. And,
oh, yeah.
and
that was, you know what, that's scary. That is so scary, picking out a dress for somebody and ended up putting them in a casket. And you know, I never really paid attention until when they brought her out and got her dress and her casket were the same color and the same print.
And in the document, I remember you saying, "I saw this beautiful blue dress and I thought Kendra would like it." And then you said,
yes.
"I know this is the dress I was going to be burying my daughter in."
Okay, but the only thing was wrong with it was the zipper needed some touching up, and that was the only thing wrong with the dress.
Right.
Ooh. Yeah, that's scary.
Okay. So I'm going to just open it up and see if anybody has a
Okay.
question for Shirley. And keep in mind, family, this woman is still experiencing the trauma of losing her child in such a way. So let's be sensitive to that. So anyone have a question? Marcia, can you kind of moderate, see if there are any hands raised? I can't be
Yeah, and actually, I have a question, I think, and it could prompt some others to ask the question. Ms. Shirley, this is Marcia. I chair this group, and I've been working with Joyce on this, and I'm so sorry about your experience, and I'm so grateful that you're here with us tonight. I saw a recent article that referenced Kendra, and 39 people have been killed by the Portland police after Kendra. And so I'm wondering, what does restoration look like? I mean, we can't bring back your child, and we understand, that officers, murder people, and all of the things that come along with that. But I wonder, what would have been, is an apology sufficient? What's restoration look like for somebody in your situation?
Okay, for one thing, I would want to know why. And then when the first time he met Kendra, he said she lied about her age to him. And so ever since then, he's been at her. Okay, that's some sick shit, sorry. I just really think he was obsessed with my daughter.
Wow. Thank you. Do folks have questions for Miss Shirley about?
Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead, Zainab, I see you.
Hi. This is Zainab Folk, and first of all, thank you, Ms. Isidore, for sharing. The first statement that I wrote down that really resonated with me, and hearing you speak, was about your anger. Mm-hmm. You have not received any peace or justice. And, as a Black woman and and someone who understands the history in America, and specifically in Portland, Oregon, I really want to lean more towards, what 17 years is a long time, and people believe that you should heal or you're able to. I think I was watching I did watch a documentary about Yusuf Hawkins' mother. Mm-hmm. And it touched me because she did not have an opportunity to grieve. And so I want to just ask the question about your grieving process, and then how do you support other families who also have experienced this, and in what ways should the community come and wrap their arms around families when it comes to grieving, especially when it deals with violence? So I know that's a loaded question, Ms. Shirley, but that was very touching to me about your continued anger, which is really understandable. And thank you again.
Okay. I just pray, because I just ask God, I know how they feel, and I know how they feel, and I know what they're going through. And if I could touch them, yes, I am a hugger. And I would, and sometimes that's what I do when I pray. I just hug myself, praying for others that have been through this time of of losing someone by the hands of a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, on their car door it says to protect and serve. So who are you protecting and who are you serving?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things I talked to Shirley about is, you know, when these things happen, we do have to think about the impact on the family and on the community. I think during the time, wasn't one of your little grandsons going to Albina Head Start, Shirley?
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, I know people that work at Albina Head Start, and they were devastated. They were devastated because I think your grandson at the time who was there was about 3. How
Yeah,
do
he was 3.
you have a community embrace all the ways in which we are impacted by police violence? And that's why voices are so important, because I do know that during that time, we did a march, Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform. I remember we marched up Killingsworth, and there was a lot of people. I don't know exactly how many. I know Dan Handelman is on the phone here. He might have the numbers.
Yeah, it was.
It was a
And
lot
I
of,
thank them,
yes.
you know, being able to be a part of it.
Yeah. So anyone have any questions or comments?
Marcia, I'm on my phone, so I can't see if there's any hands. Is there any hands before I ask something?
I don't see any. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for speaking with us today and sharing the story of your daughter and the story of a lot of daughters across the country. I have a specific question in regards to this idea of centering those who are most impacted by not only the systems of oppression, but the culture of oppression in the conversations towards justice and equity. How do you see, I guess, that conversation? And do you think that it should be a mix, or do you think it should be centering in crafting solutions? Do you think it should be centering those voices and pairing those with, you know, folks who want to be comrades and co-conspirators? Or how do you necessarily see the role of folks who are in similar situations in regards to trauma, especially? Does that make, hopefully that makes some sort of sense.
I'm trying to understand what you're saying. This is Elliot, right?
No, sorry.
I understood
This is
a little.
Taji.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can, sorry, I can clarify. I guess my question really is about how can we craft solutions in equity and injustice related to oppression, and how do we center the voices of those who are most impacted by that, and also at the same time have folks who want to support and lift up those voices, those co-conspirators? How do they have a role in that fight as well? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, for me, I think meetings. You know, I used to do Al-Anon, you know, just to listen to other people going through something to try to help me understand what I was going through. And there should be knowledge for all of us about, you know, how people don't like us just because of who we are. I mean, God made us this way. What's y'all's problem? And I just think everything should be equal. We were born equal. It's just all about the learning. I believe it's you know, learning how to survive in 2020.
I'd like to just say that as part of a response to your question, all we need to do is look at what's happening today in the streets.
Yeah.
It began with a real strong focus on Black Lives Matter, and it's gotten off track. And when I think about the rallies and the marches that we have planned when tragedies like this happen in our community, we were real clear about what we wanted to see. And we focused our discussions, we focused our activism. We met with people in the police bureau, with the mayor's office, and we had a consistent message. I think we're at a point now where that message has been terribly distracted. And I think people who are going to be allies or co-conspirators need to realize that and understand. One of the things that we try to do as a community is keep our eye on the prize.
Mm-hmm.
And we need our co-conspirators, our allies, to also keep their eyes on the prize. And that means holding people who may come from different communities accountable and saying to them, no, this is not, I mean, I can think about the night that the verdict came in on the Ferguson decision. And one of the things we were real clear about is that we were not tearing up downtown Portland. We were very clear with people, everybody who was there. And then there was a group that wanted to do something different. And we made it very clear, if you do this, you're not a part of this. And we made sure that the police who were on the scene said this group is not representative of what we are fighting for. So I'm a little riled up right now because we have fought so hard for so many years, and we don't want to see the movement for justice for our community and other communities of color to be decimated. So, Shirley, do you have anything else you want to add?
My last thing I want to add is that I am going to Washington, D.C. to march on the 28th, and I'm hoping that this makes a difference for everybody.
All right.
That's all I want is change.
Okay. So just to talk a little bit more about that, Joe Bean Keller put together a GoFundMe page to raise money. And then last I heard, there are about 9 families who are going, Shirley?
Yes, and I think there's supposed to be a barbecue or something this weekend from 1 to 4.
Where's it going to be?
I'm not sure where, but it's something Kenny said. I guess Bean had texted him.
Okay, well,
so
we'll
I
see.
can let you know more about it tomorrow.
Okay. The other thing is, this is a personal ask. When Shirley and I first talked, she wants to get 3 T-shirts made that have her picture on it and her daughter's picture on it, so they can wear that during the march. And I have a friend who does T-shirts, but when I talked to them earlier, they don't have the capacity to do a T-shirt. So if anybody has a connection with anybody, has a business or can do a T-shirt, she only needs 3. And I would love to be able to help support her in getting those 3 T-shirts. She will be representing not only her daughter, but also the city of Portland. So now I guess it's, go ahead. Anybody had something to say? So what we want to do now is we want to open it up because the purpose of this particular meeting is to focus on have some conversation. What does community safety look like from the perspective of Black women? And the other one, what should Black, Indigenous, people of color, women expect from interactions with police? And I just want to start out by saying, one of the things that I've always, whenever I'm in a meeting with a police chief or whomever, a couple of things that I bring up: the use of profanity. I have seen officers use profanity, and you can imagine profanity that is gender-based, referring to somebody as the B word, or saying to somebody, and I mean, and it's like, we talk about, I saw one time some young girls get off the bus, and this officer was there, and I guess some report had been called in, and he started yelling at these girls. They were walking down the street. They didn't know he was talking to them, because they didn't know they supposedly had done something wrong. And he kept yelling, hey, hey, hey. And then I heard him say, get your asses over here. That was totally inappropriate. That was on Northeast Alberta Street. That wouldn't have happened on Skyline Boulevard. That would not have happened in another neighborhood. And I think as community members, we have to challenge that. I challenged this officer. And basically, he first told me, ma'am, you need to mind your own business. And I said to him, this is my business. I'm the chair of this neighborhood association. And I am going to make sure that the chief gets this information. I said, you were totally inappropriate. These were young girls, teenagers. You had no business talking to them like that. So when we talk about interactions, we want to be treated professionally and respectfully in any encounter. So I'm going to open it up for you all, because this is why we're having this. We want to find out if people have had interactions and what the outcome was, and just what you'd like to see. What needs to change? What do police officers need to be held accountable for?
You know, this is Zainab, Joyce, and you know, one thing that just came to my mind was also the schools.
Yes.
And making sure that policing in education systems are also checked, because again, these are environments where kids go to learn, they go to achieve their goals, and when they're met with hostility and violence, it threatens how they really develop themselves. And so, and I know there are also just as much as stories in the community, there's also stories about children being harmed, girls being harmed,
Yeah.
And boys being harmed in the schools as well. And so I think there's a space there to talk about that too. And thank you for everything, Joyce, your leadership, as well as pulling this together so that we can really talk about this in the community.
Well, I need to acknowledge the racial equity co-chairs, Marcia and Lakiana. They asked me to participate in one of their meetings, and I brought this up as a possible topic. And they said, yeah, that's good. So we've been kind of interacting and working, and the beautiful flyer that you have, Lakiana put that together while we were on a call. So, and that's what, let me just say this, the Portland Committee for Community Engaged Policing is something that came out of the settlement agreement that the Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform asked the Department of Justice to do an audit of police use of deadly force. And what eventually came out of it was a settlement agreement. And we have been on it ever since this first happened. This settlement agreement came about. We ended up going to, you know, we did something unique here in this city, because there are settlement agreements all over the country. And a lot of them came about under the Obama administration. Well, you all know what happened once the leadership of the country changed. the Jeff Sessions was directed to shut these settlement agreements down. We have hung on, and one of the first things that we did was we went to the court and we lobbied for what's called amicus status. Friends of the court, we have an enhanced amicus status. We're the only city, only community in the country that goes to court whenever the city of Portland goes and the Department of Justice. And that was a lot of work. Many people, the judge allowed the community to come into his court and share what their thinking was. And I will be honest with you, the city wasn't totally in favor of that. And so this is where we're at now. And with the rise in police brutality, and make no mistake, I have just been horrified at the uptick in police brutality against people of color. A couple of weeks ago, a Black woman and her two daughters and her nieces were approached while they were in a car in Aurora, Colorado, and they were made to get out the car. The four girls, a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old, and I think the other two were teenagers, they were made to lie face down on the hot pavement on the side of the freeway, and they handcuffed children. So, I mean, I don't know about you. What I'm seeing is, I think it's retaliatory behavior. A couple of days ago, I saw some video footage of 2 little Black boys who were handcuffed. So we still have work to do, and we still have to engage with our police people and with our city government to let them know this is not okay. This is not this is not the kind of community we want to live in. And so I know I see some people who have been long-term foot soldiers. I see Erlene, I see Iris. Zainab was raised in this community, and she has been a foot soldier when she was wearing diapers. Seriously. And so it's the truth, I know. So let's talk. Anybody got any things they want to share? Any expectations that we need to demand of our policing, of how we are policed?
I have something to say.
Okay.
First, I'd like to say thank you for Ms. Shirley for sharing and opening up that space to let us be there in the moment, and just know that we are praying for you and your family and supporting you. I saw a commercial on TV about a police precinct in Hillsborough or Beaverton. And what they said is that they were trying to do better at supporting the people in their community and wanting Black people to feel safe. But what discouraged me about their training was not one person that they were having the police versus the community training. Not one of them was a man, woman, teenager, anybody of color. Everyone was a white male or woman of age, like an elderly. And one thing one of the community members said was, "Stop, I feel unsafe, you're in my space." And that bothered me because if I, as a Black woman, would say that, I feel like my voice wouldn't be heard.
Right.
And so to have them do the training with nobody of color so that they can feel us say it, and so they can see the reaction on our face and how terrified we are,
Yes.
It didn't make sense for them to do the training and there was nobody of color.
Right.
That bothered me. And if we're going to say that we're trying to service, if they're going to say that they're trying to service the community and support everyone, what I'd like to see is you really reach out to the communities. If you don't have a lot of people of color in your community, go on the outside and pull them in and really let us know that you want to be different, you want to change, and you want to do better, and then educate others around you, because that just seemed like it was like false advertisement to me. It was just like, look at us, look at what we're doing, but there was nobody representing the people that need the help or the protection the most against police.
Shonda, were you on the racial equity subcommittee meeting a month ago?
Yes.
Okay, because you're the one who, when I asked the question, we had there was this meeting and we started talking about Black women, and I just heard myself talking, and finally I said, is there any other Black woman on this call? And then she spoke up and she shared her story, which was powerful. And one of the things I remember you saying is that you don't want your daughter to experience some of the things you've experienced.
Correct. And she's walking with me right now.
Tell her hi.
Okay, she waved. She is very strong with wearing her afro. At first,
right.
She was being teased at school. People told her she looked better with her hair straightened.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at kids her age, their Instagram, I just let her get one when she turned 14. I was like, okay, I can let you go a little bit. But what I see on her Instagram is supporting Black Lives Matter, supporting people who having gender change and things like that. And she's posting things like, pink is not a girly color, or just because I wear my hair short doesn't mean I'm a boy. So I'm proud of my baby. So I'm grateful that eventually she'll be able to be a voice in the community and help speak up for others.
Yes.
But I want her to also be able to speak up for herself as being a Black woman and not being afraid to talk back to the police or talk. So the thing that I ran into recently with my mom is the police officer was so intimidated that I was educated, and that I spoke with him with calmness, but direct and firmness. Like she was involved in an accident with a white boy who was 18, uninsured, and the driver who was teaching him how to drive was uninsured as well.
Oh boy.
And they took all my mom's information, and I said, okay, I need that little boy's information and the driver's information. They were like, we're not giving that to you right now. I said, oh, well, we won't be leaving this spot until I get that, because that's my right to have it. So I started taking pictures of the cars. They got intimidated. Well, ma'am, why are you doing that? I said, because my mom was just in an accident. So why don't you want me to take pictures of this accident? You know, and I stayed calm during the whole thing. I started asking for the police officer's name and their badge numbers. That's what really got them. And then I started taking pictures of the numbers on the back of their police car. So then everything was switched up. Then it became, ma'am, well, if you can just go across the street so that we can have some time. So now you're intimidated by me because I'm exercising my right to get information. So now you want me away from the whole situation. I shouldn't even have to have gone that far. It should have just been openly offered to us because it was an accident. I shouldn't have had to feel like I had to be aggressive with them. And I felt like they wanted me to get hyped up, but I knew, no, you got the wrong one. I'm staying calm, but I'm just gonna beat you up with words and my kindness and just use my words correctly. That's one thing that I know that is an issue. And a lot of the boards that I'm on, I was training people. Everybody I was training was white. Then when I asked for the supervisor's job, who I trained, I was turned down, and I was asked why. And they said because I didn't have a degree. And I said, but I trained all these people.
Right.
Okay. So it's, we want to be treated fair in all areas. And I do, again, also want my daughter to be able to see me standing up for myself and her feel confident about that and be like, you know what, my mom did this and she went through this, and I know it was a little bit of a struggle. I can go through it too.
Thank you so very much. And tell your daughter, we are so proud of her. And I got my kente cloth on. Hi there, daughter. I love your hair. Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any comments, any questions? Can we talk a minute about the issue of trans women? Because the murders of trans women is an issue, and that doesn't get talked about. And the targeting of trans women.
Joyce, I want to mention, many of us, if you haven't heard already, and I mentioned this in my opening remarks about the trans woman who was killed, Aja, and I read an article that was just devastating that, really the police and those around have left that family in the dark, and they don't have the answers. And the irony of that death was that she was at a of another homicide that had taken place. So I would love to hear from folks about the issues around Black trans women in our community. We've talked about their experiences a couple of times in the last couple of meetings, but would love to hear from you all.
Yes.
I also want to acknowledge that I see we have Senator Gordley on the call too, and I think that
All right.
want to acknowledge her presence, and if you have anything to add.
I'm just looking through the list here to see who else we have. We have Marlin Marion. Okay. So I know I see some names on here of people that I've known since they were young. And I want to I see Nakisha Luckett on here. And of course Zainab. But are there any issues that you can share related to how young Black women are treated, or the interactions between police and younger Black women? I shared one of the stories that I had. Anybody want to share anything related to our younger sisters?
Joyce, real quick, because I don't want us to miss the first statement you made about trans women and
Yes.
harm that's been caused. And I'm looking at people from other meetings that I've been on who have
Okay.
they were the voices of this community as well. And so, it becomes really hurtful for me because I just learned about someone who I know was possibly killed, but more of the fact that the police, the wanted ad, because they never found the person who killed this person, the wanted, the flyer showed this person in the traditional form. And my fear is that this person was killed as a trans woman.
Okay.
And that to me is also something that is not discussed. it's not discussed in the Black community as well. Let's be honest here. We have a really hard time even addressing this issue. But when it comes to violence, period, like when it's male, female, whatever gender you identify with, but when it's really people who are trying to come out of their own space into environments where they always known as that has been unsafe, we as a community have to speak up. We can't just speak up about just people who are white. We have to speak up for all people. And that's the concern that I have right now, is that while we're talking, and yes, it's just a few of us talking, I want to hear everyone else's voice when it comes to this topic as well, because I know it's something that is very crucial to address, because we're going to be dealing with this going forward. And if we don't address it now, we don't start to talk about it, we're going to continue to see harm in our community.
I completely agree with you. My name is Stephanie Franklin. I am a rising junior at Oregon State University. I work with SOUL, which is within the Pride Center, which is for multicultural people in the LGBTQ+ community. I'm actually from Chicago and Atlanta, so I'm new to the Oregon scene. I'm getting more into the work, so I'm very glad to be here and to meet you all. I wanted to touch on that because even when we first found out about Tony McDade passing away, he was being misgendered in news articles all over social media.
Okay.
It's really important, like that you touched on that, because I've been thinking the same thing. And even when I was going to these protests in Portland and they would scream, say his name, and I never heard Tony McDade, and I'm the only one yelling it with my group of friends. And that's a reality that queer people have to face that are also Black, of having these this intersectionality where they only want to see one part of you and then ignore the other. And you know, there is a lot of homophobia within the Black community and transphobia that is not addressed or touched upon, and people try to ignore the trans deaths that are happening within the community. And I just appreciate you for touching on that, and I recognize you and I see you.
Thank you.
And I just want to just touch base really quickly. We have about 20 minutes left, and I also, Zainab, really appreciate that comment. I want to hold this space specifically for Black women in this group tonight. I don't want to make any assumptions because there's a lot of videos that are up, but I too would love to hear from other folks on this call about Black trans lives, Black lives, and how how we can be helpful and hear more about your experiences so that it will inform future recommendations out of PCCEP.
Okay, this is Shirley. I didn't understand kind of what you were asking.
Marcia, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, hi Shirley. Yeah, so we have about 20 minutes left, and we're just asking for this next 20 minutes to be specifically for Black women to talk about their experiences in the community. The original question that Joyce had asked was really about what does public safety look like, especially with working with law enforcement, and then we got on the topic specifically about transgendered women in our community, and so just speaking from that perspective, if that makes sense.
Okay, I never really, well, I don't understand, but I do understand. You know, I just feel that if people need to be who they are, why not just let them be who they are without any judgment? Supposed to give people love, not judge them because they want to change.
Thank you, Shirley. I see Senator Gordley, did you? I think you started to talk. I think I caught that.
Hey, Val, are you on the call? Are you unmuted? Is she unmuted? Let's see her.
I can't speak for trans women because I'm a non-binary Black person, but I'm not trans. But I can still talk about my experience that has happened with police while being in Oregon. Right now, I'm a part of an initiative with OSP, just working on just having police officers on our campus and how that makes BIPOC feel on the campus. And it was odd to me because we're having this Zoom discussion and I'm speaking to old white cis men about how it's uncomfortable to have them around, just riding around in their cars, eyeing us down where we're walking on the street. It's a feeling of anxiety and it's never a feeling of like safe. They don't make me feel safe. They make me feel anxious. And then we were just saying, like, we just don't want to see them. Like, we don't really want them around. This white man's like, oh, well, like, I feel like they would make you guys feel more safe. Like, I don't understand why you would think this way. And I'm like, I'm not about to, like, trauma dump on this Zoom to you. But me telling you this as a Black person should just be enough, just bottom line. I don't want to see them roaming past me. I literally had the worst experience with OSP when I first transferred to Oregon State. Me and my mom were just riding around with her ex-boyfriend at the time, just trying to get things from my dorm. And we got pulled over. They told us that we failed to make a turn signal, you know, the usual thing. And she's going in, she's like, I just feel like you stopped me because I'm a Black woman driving a Mercedes in Corvallis. And I feel like you just, you know, have something against me. And they're like, no, ma'am, it's not that, you know, that whole ordeal. I'm having an anxiety attack. They're trying to tell me to calm down. It's not helping any better. So like, that was just my experience. And I've never felt safe around the police my entire life, whether it was in Atlanta, in Chicago, and even in this small town in Corvallis. So I don't know, I'm been going to a lot of webinars and just learning about, you know, police abolition, just what we can do instead of calling the police within our communities when we do need help and to reach out for those type of things. And so that's just kind of where I'm at right now.
No, thank you, Destiny, for that piece about calling police. I think, well, everything you said was that piece right there. That's a reality in our community. That the first call is not to the police. The first call is not 911. It's typically to our family member or someone who we know we trust, so that we know that we're safe. And that has to change as well. I want to say, well, I'm an Oregonian. Well, I'm an Oregonian, was born in Corvallis. I'm sorry that you experienced that. It's the worst type of experience to come and be welcomed to a new state. But this also, it sounds like it was recent. It wasn't 20 years ago. It was more recent. And so I do hope that people are hearing and listening. And the fact that you talked about trauma dumping, there's no need for us to have to explain. I think 400, 500 years of explanation has already been made. And there's songs about it too. And so as we're sharing, it's about a space that you can trust, a space that you feel like you're comfortable in sharing, you know, your experiences. And it's not for us to be on display as well, because this trauma is real. Post-traumatic stress syndrome is so real for the Black community, and we have not addressed it. And we've not addressed it for many, many, many centuries. So I want to say thank you for sharing that, and also addressing the fact that, you know, we don't find police officers to be our first call when it comes to looking for safety. Because I've also heard from families who have lost members, especially with dealing with mental health situations, have lost members because they just called to just have them help them, and rather than help, they harmed. So just keeping that in mind. And again, hopefully, while you said, Marcia, this is a space for Black women to share, I do find that I kind of feel like we're on display right now. And if people are not talking and sharing, or even expressing how they recognize what's going on, it continues to manifest itself. So hopefully that if it's not through this Zoom call, it's through your work that you're doing in your community, it's through what you're posting online, it's who you talk to and your neighbors, you're sharing the fact that this is real, and that, you know, we have to make change and do better. That's definitely in Oregon. I mean, as an Oregonian, we have to do better. Thanks.
Yeah.
Joyce, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, Senator Gordley.
Hello, everyone. I have been listening on and off, and a couple of things I want to say to Shirley Isidore, if she's still there. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
1,000 times for your presence and for sharing your heart with all of us this evening. I want to let you know that you are loved. You are loved, and we honor you for
Yes.
being present. And Joyce, I want to thank you. I want to honor you, Joyce, for all of the work that you have done these many, many, many years through the Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform, and before that, I worked with the Black United Front. And I was so happy to hear you talk about how in the past we used to organize, and we did it with integrity. And,
Yes.
and we did it in a way, as you said, where we kept our eyes on the prize.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important right now. I'm glad that you raised that up. And to Zainab, I've been on the phone with Zainab a couple of times recently. I can't even, to see your face and to hear your voice and to know something about your roots. It's like, I think Joyce said something about having seen you in diapers, or we've known you and watched you grow and become this wonderful, brilliant woman, making your own contributions now to the movement. But again, just wanting to applaud all of you,
For that, I appreciate it.
Shirley,
Yes.
and again, Joyce. I don't know what we would do in this community without a Joyce Harris. And
Thank
just
you.
love you so much, and appreciate what you're doing right there tonight with PCCEP.
Yeah, and can I just say something? PCCEP is a group, a committee of volunteers. Folks are volunteers, and we need to support them.
Yes.
We need to support them. And I'll say that, you know, I've been to some of the meetings, but then I kind of got pulled in. Thanks, Lakiana.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Marcia. And now I see the struggle, and Theo too, the struggle that PCCEP is having.
Yes.
Because they need, if they're a group to try to further our visions of a beloved community that is engaged, they need our help. They need our support. I am so thrilled to see so many of you on this call tonight, because if we don't get engaged and if we don't bring in other people, things are just going to stay just the way they are. And I know just from the times that I've worked with the PCCEP over the last couple of months, these folks work hard. They work hard, and they're working on our behalf. And we need to be supportive of them so that we can communicate to the city what we need them to do to support the work of PCCEP.
Yes.
That's what's so important. Because they're not a standalone, you know, they're here today and they'll be gone tomorrow. We need them to be here. We need to support them. We need to speak out to the mayor, to the commissioners. This is what we need to do. If they need information, like if they need data on police stops or whatever, they shouldn't have to wait for that.
That's right. That's right.
They should not have to wait for that. And we need to send strong messages to the leadership of the city and say, our expectation as citizens is that you support this committee. And when you don't do that, then we know you're not serious about community engaged policing. So that's my message. I agree with much of what's been said about let's kind of begin to look at the whole issue of trans people and what's happening, because it does get swept under the rug. It's ignored. And we know that we have people who are being targeted because of their gender identity or their perceived gender identity. I know someone who was targeted, not because they were trans, but because they were perceived to be trans. So we got a lot of work to do. And I'm hoping that we can have some additional conversations. And let's take these back to the people that we interact with, even in our families. So are we almost done, Marcia? I think we're about
Yeah,
out of time.
we have about 7 minutes left. I know there was a couple of people who had last minute thoughts. I'll open it up. I'll just use a few more minutes to open it up. People have, if anyone has any last minute thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up.
Marcia, are you all getting the support, the quality of support that you need from the city, the mayor's office?
I feel like that's a trick question to put me on the spot like that. I honestly, I think it can be better. What's most important to me right now is having the support of the community, and having upwards of 57 people on this call today is incredible. My job is to uplift the voices of those that are in the community, and I don't represent everybody. You talked about that. We can't speak for everybody. So your voices tonight are so incredibly important for us to be able to share with the city and to make recommendations.
Right.
I would have liked to see more city leaders on here today, but we didn't get that. But what we did get was incredible stories and really, really great perspective. I've been taking notes, and so just thank you everyone who stepped up and shared your stories and spoke out tonight.
Can I just add one thing? I
Yes.
know for a fact that PCCEP reached out to some of the city leadership. And so those of us who are on the call maybe need to make some calls and say, we had a very impactful dialogue, and we expected that you would be there.
Well, I will say I personally sent an email directly to specific individuals from the Bureau who are not present here today. So those of you who are here, your voice matters. You're seen, you're heard, notes are being taken, and your words are really important, and you all know how to hopefully get a hold of me outside of this meeting. I see Amy's hand was up, and then I think Taji had something to add, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this meeting up.
Yeah, what I want to say is thank you all so much for sharing. I've been a volunteer chaplain in MCDC for almost 25 years, and I have seen so many horrible things in the past to folks who I say were overly incarcerated that I really want to also continue to focus on as well. And the committee that I chair is the Behavioral Health Committee, which I know there's a lot of folks impacted by mental health disorders that are being not treated the greatest. And I really would like the voices to continue by maybe some of you applying to be on PCCEP. We have openings. We'd like to see a lot more different variation of folks become leaders on this committee, but first you have to get on. So I encourage everyone to join. And I also encourage everyone to be on as many Zoom calls as you can that have to do with the political issues going on in our city. That way we can stay really informed as a community and we can gather our voices as one and really make a statement. So thank you all for sharing. I appreciate it. Come join all of our committees. Check us out. We really need you. We need people to join.
Thanks, Amy. Taji, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a remark that goes back to the conversation about Black trans women specifically. I had the opportunity to go to the TT Goli memorial a few weeks ago with some of my friends, and hearing from the family of TT and specifically the mom raising similar sentiment and similar pain that we heard today and tonight from Shirley about. And I think it really gets to this, and I think we still have an opportunity with TT's case to ensure that it's not remarked or pushed to the side as a suicide and a hanging in a park when that wasn't what happened, and we know that wasn't what happened. And we have an opportunity to support and uplift and provide justice to TT's family. She was a Black trans woman who was houseless in Portland and worked with a lot of Black trans women in Portland. And really important conversation there, and I really want to take a lot of the sentiment that was given tonight into change and into justice. And so, like Amy mentioned, having members on the PCCEP, but also taking some of the sentiment tonight and pushing forward policy recommendations. As the senator mentioned earlier, that the biggest thing that is hard for us is those policy recommendations we want to see results from, and that's what we would say is the hardest letdown we're getting from the city right now.
Right.
Thanks, Taji. I want to acknowledge, I see Nike Green video just came on, and she represents the city, and so we do have some city staff here tonight.
Yes.
So thank you for being here.
Right.
Okay.
Any last comments before we wrap up, everyone?
Let's thank Lakiana for his leadership. Yes. Don't shake your head. You work hard, and I want to thank you. I really want to thank you, and Marcia,
Well, thanks for the
for
outcome.
your work. And we've had some real deep conversations over the last couple of weeks, speaking to personal experiences that we've had, and we just have to stay together. That's all. That's all. Zainab, please give me a call. I'm sorry, I got you.
Zainab, please join PCCEP. Thank you all so much. Again, I couldn't do this without Ms. Joyce, and so I appreciate all of you for being here and braving your stories. We all do this for personal reasons, and we're devoted to the work, and so I appreciate you taking your evening. I'm really glad it's not 100 degrees out because I'd be sweating here, but you all are so valued, and I'm happy to connect with you at any time. And Miss Shirley Isidore, thank you so much. I'd love to reach out. The PCCEP is going to cover your shirts for the march, so I would like to connect with you at some point so we can get that organized for you and ready to go.
And if you'd like,
Did you have my phone first?
I'll get it.
Joyce.
Yes.
Okay, and just call me.
Will do.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Thank you all.
Stay safe and well.
Yes.
You too.
Buddy.
well done, y'all.
Okay.
Thanks, Ms. Joyce.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Hi, everyone. Peace and love.
Yes.
Joyce, we'll set up a time to debrief at some point. But
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you all for your time tonight.
Mhm.
We'll go ahead and end
with that, right on time. All right, everyone.
Good night.